Hey everybody, how you doing this fine Sunday morning? Mother's Day for some people around the world. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Wanted to hit a couple of topics today that hopefully will be helpful for you as I'm rearranging stuff. And that is going to be talking about getting ready for summer vacations, graduations. I did one of those yesterday. Have another one coming up next month. So hopefully it will be a discussion that will be helpful for you. Completely understand that this will probably be a tiny or little event with not as many people, but hey, if I happen to catch you, that would be outstanding. Plus, if you happen to catch this on the podcast on Spotify or iTunes or Google Play or wherever else you happen to get your podcast, welcome to the show. See, we got a couple people in here already. I know I had somebody the other day complain about the music. It doesn't last long. It's gonna filter out at some point. Anyways, so as I get tangled up in my cords here, we are entering in to the sometimes difficult part of summer vacation. And I think that it would be, I would be remiss if I didn't kind of hit a few of those salient points that happen, unfortunately, especially in the early parts of this, when you are dealing with a toxic narcissistic ex who is only concern is their own and wreaking as much havoc as they possibly can. So let me just dive into a couple things to expect so you can kind of prepare yourself for it. And I'll give you some recommendations to help mitigate some of those issues. And the first one is you can pretty much guarantee that your ex will try to do anything to either mess up your timing of your whatever you have planned for summer with your kids, if you happen to have time with them. If they're unable to do that, if they know what's going on, if you happen to accidentally leak that, hey, we're going to go to the lake. If you happen to leak that and the kids share that critical bit of information, then a lot of times what will happen is the week before to potentially even the day before you're supposed to depart on your adventure, they will miraculously come up with the exact same idea so that the kids are all tired out. I've actually had I've actually had people say that they're like, hey, we're going to go to the amusement park. And the ex will take them to, a 3 or 4 day, multi-day adventure to where they are so sick of it that by the time you get the kids, the last thing they want to do is go to an amusement park. So here's the first little bit of advice. And it's kind of annoying that we have to do this. But unfortunately, this is kind of the scenario that we are in. Do not tell the kids what you're doing. Leave it as a surprise. What's probably going to happen, what will probably occur, is the kids will be like, where are we going? Where are we going? We really want to know. We really want to know. And or the ex will demand to know where you're going, per the court order. On page 3, paragraph 4, subsection 2, it says that you have to give us a complete itinerary 30 days in advance, or whatever the time frame is. One other little note I just want to mention right now is, because that's kind of the time frame that was in mine, that completely sucks whenever you are in a scenario where you would like to do something, like let's say a simple camping trip, and you want to secure a camping site. If any of you have ever tried to do that, at least in the great state of California, and probably most places in the United States, you have to do that months in advance. And you can't do that a month ahead of time. So on that, if you happen to be the priority person that year, then maybe you might be able to do that. Otherwise, not so much. I digress. Anyways, they will tend to do it already before. That actually happened to us. Debbie and I had planned something. I made them the critical mistake between the 2 days, 2 freaking days that we had. I had the kids on the weekend. Mom had them on Monday and Tuesday. Got them back Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. I don't even remember when it was. Whatever day it was. Whenever the day was that... No, it was Tuesday night, because I remember I used to do the live shows on Tuesday because that was the only day every week that I had free. Anyways, so got them back Wednesday. And I'm like, hey, we all ready to go? Oh, we already did that. Mommy had a coupon. It's like, sorry, I apologize. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I got yelled at because it's not about you. So don't tell. Keep your intel close. Your operational security, for any of you who are past military, keep it close. Make that part of the fun. It's not going to be fun because the kids are going to want to know where they're going. They're going to get all freaked out about it. Maybe you'll get the ex to try to say something to you, but you need to be prepared for that. Now, the sad reality is if you're listening to this, and if you're anywhere partly already through this, you will probably have already experienced this scenario that I'm already anticipating. If you have not, consider yourself lucky and do not fall for that trap. Now, as I set my coffee down and make a ton of noise, I apologize for that. The other scenario, and I've experienced this too, earlier on. Remember, I've been doing this for over a decade. I think I'm at 11 years, 9 months, 7 days or something. I was looking at that the other day. The other scenario is you do something, it's great. Kids are happy. They've had a tremendous amount of fun. They're like, this is the best trip ever. And you send them back to the ex, and they spend their little time with them, whatever it may be. Maybe a week, maybe a few days. Doesn't take much. And when they come back, the story will have changed. It wasn't an amazing trip. There were all these problems with said trip. They might now be allergic if you went to the lake. They might now realize that they are deathly afraid of brain-eating amoebas in the lake. You go to the beach. They might be like, I'm now allergic to the sun. I don't like the beach anymore. I'm making a joke of this. I've experienced some of this crap, and I know a lot of you have. I mean, some of this I'm kind of extrapolating from other people's stories, but unfortunately, this is a recurring scenario. I like this. iTumbler says great advice builds anticipation as well, keeping it secret. It like I said, it does. Debbie and I used to do that. If you're new to this show, Debbie would be my long-term girlfriend, and there's a reason for that, just to try to maintain the, minimize the debacles that occur with exes and new relationships. But that's a completely different topic that we are not going to get today. Sorry about that. But they have a tendency to try to find, sorry, I'm choking over here. Try to find a way to weasel in to cause problems. It's really frustrating. Tim says my favorite was when my ex gave my kids on a Saturday morning. Wait a minute. When my ex gave me the kids on a Saturday morning, and knowing we were going on a drive, gave my kids, sorry, now the stupid thing has a tendency to block my view. Okay, let me try this one more time. My favorite was when my ex gave my kids on a Saturday morning, and knowing we were going on a drive, gave my kids with a tender stomach some greasy food and barfed all over my car. But Tim, this is a memory that's been seared into you and your kids' mind. Yeah, and now probably, well, I don't like to go on drives. I get car sick. But see, that actually, Tim, is an excellent example of what I'm talking about. You've got to be really careful of what's going on. And this is a type of BS that somebody will do. And it's not even so much that what they do is like, well, I don't, Tim does in this particular scenario, Tim doesn't exist. So, in that time that I'm going to be dropping the kids off, whatever we're doing is no big deal. So, in my mind, there's no reason not to do the greasy food because it's going to be a nice, pleasant day with no nothing. Excuse me. All right. Let's see here. Sonny says, Plan A told X, then went to secret Plan B. Ooh, actually, I'm trying to remember if I did something like that. That is not a bad idea. Tim says, every plan is secret. Yeah, I got to the point that that's what I have to do. Now, I don't do that now, but literally, I have one child left. Tim had mentioned, let me pull this up. Tim mentioned, hello, great pics of the graduation crew on Facebook. I think it was Facebook. I posted photos of my middle daughter graduating from Woodbury University with a Bachelor in Fine Arts in Animation with a minor in art history. So that was an interesting day. We'll get into that in a little bit more because that was I got to spend the last couple of days around the X. And that was fun. That was an interesting experience. I'm sure you guys can all understand that. And let's see, Tumblr said, if the ex is interested in finger pointing, reverse it back on them and discuss their co-parenting issues. I understand what you're saying there, Tums, but here, and I'll give this advice to everybody, and I'll just reiterate it right now. And that is, as soon as you've had a couple of experiences where you try to interact and tell or inform the ex of their co-parenting issues, and potentially even their violations of the court order, information sharing, and all that kind of stuff, after a while, when you realize that is just like beating your head against the wall and accomplishing nothing, don't do it to yourself. Because unfortunately, and inevitably, what occurs, no matter how much you think it won't, it really gets on your nerves and it really frustrates you. So you have to kind of look at things a little differently and say, okay, where is my energy best served? Where can I put it that does the least amount of damage to me and my children? Because and just keeping my state peaceful. Now, I get it, because there was a period of time in the first few years of this glorious experience where I absolutely would reverse it back on the ex and discuss their issues. And even I would point out where they were not following the court order, where I would say, remember that court order co-parenting class that we had to take? Remember on slide 57 where it said, don't do this, 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 and this, and you are doing every one of those things, and how detrimental it is to the children? It's a lost cause. Now, if you haven't proven that to yourself as of yet, I get it. And if you're like, you know what? Maybe Duane's not quite right. Maybe my situation's a little different. I'm going to have the prowess to communicate this in a way that breaks through that blockhead person. And they're going to have that epiphany moment. Their eyes will get bright and a tear will roll down their cheek because they've realized what a pile of shit garbage human, sorry about that, they've been and how much they need to change. Now, what I will say at this moment in this stream, in this show, in this podcast, at 14 minutes and 59 seconds, if you have, in fact, experienced that, please send me an email and share that story with me, because I have never heard that story from anybody, but you might be the first. My point is this. I think the coffee's kicked in a little much today. The point is this. If you are unsure of the particular type of person that you are dealing with, and you feel compelled to actually test, be my guest. But as you're doing that, remember what we've just been talking about, what I've just been saying. And if you start to see, wow, this person is really interesting and nothing is, all it's doing is tearing me down. Remember this show, remember this conversation, and try something different. Anyways. All right, let me see what's going on in the comments. Oh, iTumbler says, congratulations. Why, thank you, sir. I very much appreciate that. I wonder if I can pull up a photo. Let me see if, well, I'm sorry. And I apologize for the folks only listening this on the audio version of the podcast, whereas if you happen to be using the Spotify version, you actually can see the video. But let me try to pull this up. Oh, here we go. Excuse me. Pardon me. Let me see if I can switch this over. Here's a photo of my, I don't know if my mouse is on there, of my graduate, my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Animation with a minor in Art History from the University of Burbank. Nope, sorry, I said that wrong. Woodbury University, located in Burbank, California. So they had a multi-day ceremony. That was unique, where on Friday we got to go see all of the animation our seniors' senior thesis films. So we got to go to a movie theater down somewhere in North Hollywood, I think it was, and we got to watch everyone's film. And that was pretty cool. In a theater, we even got to have popcorn, and it was pretty cool. We got to see what all the projects were. Now, I will say, some were lighthearted. Some were, oh, that's really great. Some were like, oh, dear God, this person needs therapy. What in the hell has happened in their lives? There were a few that were like, like most of the time when the scene would end, everyone would applaud. There were a few scenes where everyone was just silent across the theater. It was like, holy, I think I leaned over to Debbie at one point and I'm like, I think some of these kids need therapy. But it was pretty cool. Let's see. Ooh, there's multiple pictures. What else we got? Oh, that's a previous picture of my youngster and us going to Joshua Tree. Anyways, so there's some more on Facebook. I know posting, it's like, nobody cares about it, whatever everyone else is doing. So, but I had to post them. Oh, then let's see. So it was, the morning was that. Then in the afternoon, there was an award ceremony. Where, hold on, let me pull this back up. Actually, I don't know where to put that. I'll pull this back up. Where my daughter won an award for the best story in the senior thesis. So I thought that was really cool. That was pretty awesome. So they had the award ceremony, and then they had the minor program graduation, and then they had something else. So it was a long day, and then the next morning basically started all over with a really long graduation, but it was still cool. So thank you, folks, for letting me share that tidbit of information. Tim says, was your major post-college dealing with crazy? Yeah. A PhD and NPD, right? Tim says, reversing it does nothing. They don't care. It's all about them, not the kids, not being reasonable, just what makes them look best. Unfortunately, that's really what it is. It's a, what's the right way to put it? Like an image, not an image, narrative. It's like they want the narrative of being the best parent ever, but they don't want to actually do the work. So on this, I guess we can roll this in since we kind of got on the topic of graduation. So some of you are probably dealing with the stress and anxiety of thinking, oh dear God, I have high school graduation, junior high promotion or whatever they call it, the 6th grade or whatever, elementary school graduation or promotion. And you're like, great, I have to be there. I have to be in the same room. And depending on what stage you are at, it's more than likely it's going to be uncomfortable no matter what stage you're at. I'll say, I'm way into this. This stuff's almost over. I have been anxious about having to deal with this graduation and the one coming up for the junior or for high school. It's just been one of those things. It's like, okay, what's going to happen? Now, I've been doing this enough to where I had an idea of what was going to happen, and it pretty much played out exactly the way I anticipated. However, or the sad part about this is you have to keep your guard up. You can't be like, oh, this is no big deal. Nothing's going to happen. It'll be fine. And because every time I've done that, it's like you let your guard down. You're not on your game. And something will go awry. And there was a few times where in the event, because we ended up basically, we didn't sit together so much during the graduation, but obviously after on the pictures, and then it was like my daughter wanted to go visit her friends where she used to work at Lego with. We did that, went out to lunch all together. That's the first time that's happened in 12 years. And, and it was just one of those things where I was we're just kind of like, all right, keep your guard up, be anticipating some type of comment. And it was actually kind of bizarre. What would happen is if I happened to walk away, and unfortunately if Debbie was by herself, that's when the ex would say something. And it wasn't like, oh, I hate you. It was more like, oh, are you okay? You look tired. Because, it was hot, tired, we were hungry and stuff. But it was that type of thing. And that's the type of crap she used to do to me too. I've made a video about a past experience that I won't talk about now. But anyway, so it was that. And then at one point when we were actually having the graduation lunch, went to Cheesecake Factory, by the way, where I can't remember what it was, but there was something that I said, and it was like the backstory would have been a jab in the ex's eye, and I'm like, oh crap, this is not the time nor the place to have this conversation. So I was able to back it off. But what I mean is that's the kind of thing. You have to keep your game face on. And here's the reality. Had I done that, absolutely would have been weaponized. Come on, Dad, why do you have to be like that? Why can't you just let things go? That type of thing. Oh, and just as a caveat, kids know what's going on, right? But at the same time, they don't want to believe it. Kind of like we probably were, or you probably were, when you were going through this before you had your awakening. And that awakening might have been whenever they just ripped your heart out and threw it on the ground and lit it on fire. Or maybe you had an awakening where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. But no matter what, like for me, it took me 2 decades, over 20 years to figure it out that this isn't working. However, it's a kid's parent. It's their mom. It's their dad. You cannot expect them to see reality and, now some people do, their kids do, but my situation, they don't or didn't. And even now they will articulate that they know what's going on, but at the same time, they still want that relationship with both parents. They don't want to believe it. It took me forever to realize that with my own mom. Anyways, I hope that discussion was helpful for you. Let me see what's going on in the comments. Maybe nothing. Maybe there's stuff going on. We got a few people here. Outstanding. You guys will have to let me know if you want me to try to turn the phone lines on. Haven't done that in a while. I still pay for it. Still active. Put it in the comments if you want me to turn the phone on, and I will, because I kind of have it set up, I think. All right, let's see. Sunny Days says, or day, not days. LOL never happens where they get it. Nope. They'll just turn around. Actually, what used to happen in my scenario is the ex would almost, if when I did it in email, would turn around and basically say the exact same thing I was saying to them. There was a handful of times where I was like, wait a minute. Did she just forward my email back? And I'd have to look through it. And it's like, oh, no, this is actually, she's writing me back, just basically saying the exact same thing that I said that she was doing. She's saying I'm doing. And I'm like, after a while, you just realize you're beating your head against the wall. Tim says, I have to keep my guard up. The judge gave my ex permission to attack me with socks filled with coins, literally. That's like that. Call a different, not call a different judge. Call the district attorney. That's assault. You can't do that. Socks filled with fluffy marshmallows. Well, even that's probably not a good idea, but I mean, whatever. Wow. Oh, Such Media says, I attend the kids' plays, sports days, etc., but separately. I can't be anywhere near her. I'm glad you said that because I was going to mention this comment and I kind of I went off on a tangent. If you're, or when you are in when you're at a place in this where it is risky, I was going to say riskful, which makes no sense, risky, to be around the other person. In other words, you have to have your game face 100% on. If it is not, and you are not 110% confident that you can navigate this scenario without issue, I would highly encourage you not to put yourself in that situation. There have been a handful of times throughout my experience where I did just that, where I basically was like, there's no way. I am so irritated. And primarily the way this would happen is that an event would be coming up. She would find some unique and interesting way to basically drop a bomb on me either the day before or the day of. And if I was not sure that I would be able to keep my tongue in check or not be able to take the bait, I was sick, I had to work, whatever. So what Such Media is talking about, if you can do things separately, that's what you do. For the longest time, on sports things, it was like I would go on my days, she would go on her days. Well, it only happened for 1 year. Like the first couple of years, she refused to go because I was breaking the law by signing my child up, our child up for soccer. Even though I said, hey, look, you don't have to take them. If the kid only goes half the time, I've already checked to make sure that they're not going to get kicked off the team or anything like that. Not a problem. If you want me to take them, not a problem. You don't want to take them, not a problem. And so the first couple of years, that's what happened. Then she started going, and there was a few games we went together, and it was just weird. Now, in my scenario, what mine liked to do, and this is what was really weird, it was like, in the court records and what she was telling everybody, I was a scumbag, I was violent, I was abusive, physically, mentally, you name it. But then when we did stuff, it was like, oh, sit right here. Oh, right, come right here. And it was like, for me, it messed with my head. It's gaslighting is what it is. I didn't know it at the time, but it was like, how do you say I'm scared of somebody and then you want to sit right next to him? So that took me a while to wrap my head around. But anyways, good times. I'm almost done. I literally have high school graduation 1 June, and my last kid turns 18 in August. And this is, I get that it's not over, but family court is over. Child support is over. Trying to get people to pay for it, which I have stopped doing a long time ago, for medical bills, is over. It's just, it's done. Dunny McDundun. On a side note, on a surprising thing, I ended up paying for the meal. And I just thought, hey, because I just didn't want to argue about it. I'm like, hey, if you want to, I put it on the card. If you want to send me some money, Zelle me some money, whatever, that's fine. That'd be great. And then I got to double check because I got it through my son. He sent me some money, my 24-year-old. And then there was a chunk of it that was from his mom. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect that. So that was kind of interesting. At least helped take the bite out of that. That was appreciated, I guess. Let's see here. Tumblers, DSD, how did you handle the awkwardness of attending extracurricular activities with the ex? And good question. And I kind of hit it, but I'll just, since you asked again, this is what I did. Okay, so initially, and this is early on for like school functions, right? I would show up, and this is like way early in it, right? So it was really freaking me out. It's like, Tuesday I'm getting letters from my attorney saying I'm stalking and harassing, and they're calling the cops on me, which they threatened to. They didn't actually do, but that type of thing. And then, Thursday at the award ceremony is like, oh, I saved a seat for you. You could sit right here. And I'm like, no, I'll take pictures in the back. I just, I'm going to stand back here, and that way I get a better angle and it'll be great. So I did that for a while. There's a couple of times, like I mentioned, to where it was just, there was so much stuff going on that I'm like, nope, I can't make it. And then what I started doing, this was actually kind of funny, is I figured, you know what, I can get there early. So I just got there early, got the seats, had her a seat. And then whenever she showed up, and typically it was like, I would get there, they'd bring the kids in. So my kid was there sitting next to me. And then mom would come in and be like, oh, you could sit right here. We saved you a seat right here, right here, right here. Okay, so I did that once. And then for like the next, I don't know, handful of events, she didn't even show up. And then she started showing up. So, But I would always, for the most part, up until the pandemic thing, I would get there early. I would generally try to sit in the front, so it made it really easy to take pictures and stuff. And I would always save a seat for the ex. And I don't know about you guys, but in my scenario, I have very rarely been picked first. What I mean is, in a scenario where we were not sitting together, kids always sat with their mom. They come by and say hi to me, but it was like, nope, it was always, I was always the second choice. So the reality is that if mom would have got there earlier and they didn't save me a seat, the kids would have sit next to mom, and I would have been in the back, and then I would have just got a picture later. I think the only one that there was one honor roll ceremony that they had this year because, now things are kind of getting back to normal. And now I think the kids had to sit in a certain order, so they couldn't sit with us. So that one was kind of different. Anyways, hopefully that answered your question, Tums. Heather says, I agree, Duane. It's very hard to accept the kids who she is, but still, okay, let me try that again. I agree, Duane, it's very hard to accept the kids who know she is, but they still want to believe she has all the good intentions. Yeah, I think maybe I'm reading that wrong, but yeah, I think what you're saying is, yeah, it's hard to accept that the kids get it, but at the same time they ignore it, And you got to be careful, right? There's this fine balance between reminding the kids of past discretions and not, because you don't really want here's the thing, we don't want our kids to live in that cognitive dissonance and prime themselves to see things incorrectly and not the way they are. And what I'm getting at is basically for them to turn around and have the same experience that we had. Now, I know it's possible, but if there's a way that we can help them learn and grow from this, to not have to learn these life lessons that we had to learn, that would be awesome, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, thanks, James. Let me do this real quick. There's a super chat from James. Says, hey, DSD, thank you for all you do and for all the advice. These people are always difficult to deal with, even 15 plus years in. Yep. And it's hard. Thanks a lot for that, James. What I'll just add on to that, it's what's really tough. Sometimes when your kids get older, they understand it and they don't want to be in the middle of it. Other times, as your kids get older, they are absolutely in the middle of it, and then they become the instrument of destruction of the ex. And what that typically looks like is text messages and whatnot from your child saying, "You're not paying enough." You know, it doesn't. You know, mom, I got a note from someone today saying that, or maybe it wasn't a note. I'm trying to remember if it was to me or maybe it was something I saw on Facebook. But it was basically along the lines of this. Child was basically saying, you know, Dad, you need to pay more. I have this event I'm going to, and Mommy's paying everything and covering everything. And, you know, it's not fair that you're not putting any money into it. And the dude was like, I gave her $3,200 a month in child support, you know, and I do still pay other stuff. It's like, and what I'm saying is that these conversations absolutely should not include your children, right? But they're doing it on purpose. What should happen is if the other person is needing or feeling that you need to send more, they should be communicating directly to you and insulating their kid from it, not trying to use this to turn the kid against you. But that crap happens all the time. You know, or worse, I mean, not worse, but also conversely, and this is kind of what I experienced when I was paying a handsome amount. It was, you know, well, Mommy did this and this, you know, why can't we go do that? And I'm thinking, because I could barely afford to put gas in the car to get to work so that I could pay my bills. I mean, I'm thinking in my head. So that was a fun one in the early temporary orders, whenever the amount was, it was really bad. Geez, what was I trying to remember? I was probably paying her 40 grand, 45 grand a year or something like that. And, and it was just, and she started paying him an allowance. It's like, Mommy's giving us an allowance, you know, like, hey, Dad, you should give us an allowance too. I'm like, that's awesome. Oh, whenever the temporary orders ended and the numbers adjusted still to a horrific number, yeah, all that stuff stopped. Anyways, I digress. Itelmer says, DSD, what do you advise your kids on getting married? I advise them to take it slow, have healthy boundaries. Don't make excuses for people if they have issues. And if people have issues, you can be empathetic, you can be caring, but you don't have to make it your problem. You don't have to try to save someone. You don't have to look at someone and say, oh my gosh, we both had horrible upbringings. This is what happened with me and my ex. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, we've had similarly bad experiences. We're kindred spirits. We'll, you know, we're each other's soulmates. You know, it's like, no. Take your time. You know, don't meet somebody and get married a month later. Make sure you vet them. Make sure that you're compatible. Make sure you have good boundaries. Make sure, I'm saying this to the kids, make sure you understand what a healthy relationship is. It's so hard nowadays. I'm 52, you know, Debbie and I have been dating for almost 10 years. So I'm way out of the dating thing. And I mean, I've seen some information. I'm sure some of you have experienced this. Some of our female viewers have probably, you know, experienced the stereotypical experience on that regard, and men have probably had that stereotypical experience on their side. It is so bizarre how dating is nowadays. It's like basically a hookup culture, which is just not good. So, man, yeah, let's just take things slow. I think you got a little bit of time, if I remember correctly, Tumblers. I think your kids are pretty young. All right, let me. I think I'm kind of missing some comments, so let me. And nobody ever said anything about turning on the phone line, so I guess nobody wants to call in, so I haven't done that. If you happen to change your mind before we end, let me know. All right, let's see. Where are we at? I already answered that one. I just saw that one. Did that one. Such Media says, the kids will never really understand what happened and what their mother is truly like. Only people who have been through narcissistic abuse understand. And the sad reality, Such Media, is really the only way for the kids to fully understand it, and this is what happened to me, with me and my dad is what I'm saying, is until I was in the midst of it and I had this light go off like, oh my God, I'm experiencing what my dad experienced. My kids are doing to me what I did to him. Holy hell. And then I had this double epiphany. It's like, oh my God, I understand now why he interacted with me the way he did. It was out of self-preservation for himself. Let's see. Such Media says, fathers will always be second choice unless they want money or need to do or buy something. That's just life. And the other thing I would say is we typically, not all moms do this and not all dads don't do this, but if we wanted to, if I wanted to really lay that guilt trip on the kids and really emotionally, screw with them to try to facilitate, not being the second choice, I probably could. But the crap that you would put your children through, it's not worth it. Just try to make it as stable for them. Guys, I get it. And gals, I get it that we end up taking it on the chin a lot. In some ways I experienced that this weekend. But it is what it is, and it's like, as long as the kids do demonstrate that they care about you, that you have a relationship there, and it's not just that you have you're an ATM. Do not set that precedence. Do not do it. Then whatever, I have a good relationship with my kids. It'll be interesting to see what ultimately happens when they're all adults and whatnot. And I get that people, once they start getting older, kids, when they start becoming adults and having their own relationships in their own lives, they're not going to be coming over every day, or hell, maybe even not that often. But, as long as you do have interactions and they're good and they feel real, then you're winning, And you want to ensure that you have that relationship that when things get, and this is what I have experienced with my kids, that when things get serious, they come to you, when it's like, okay, this is a real issue and I need some good advice, not to get bailed out, but I need to know the correct course of action, and they're coming to you, then you've won. That is my opinion. Oh, Tom said he'll call in. So I'll set that, or I'll attempt to. Now I have to hit all the right buttons and remember how to do this. So let's see, what if I do this? I got to turn this on. I got to see if I can get the Bluetoothy thing to connect, to turn on the phone. Oh, it is connected. Okay, so let me try this. I am going to hit host show. I'm only talking while I'm doing this, so you guys know where I'm at on this. In this process, might help if I actually click the button. All right. and it appears to be on. So I'm going to hit this button to try to call. And in theory, we should hear it speak.
Thank you for calling Collins Studios.
Cool. All right. So that's going. So if you do want to call in, the man, it just moved. The call-in number is 1-424-373-5483. If you're happening to watch this live and scroll down, you should see a link for the phone number. If you're outside of the United States, or for some reason you don't have the ability to make phone calls, you can use the web interface, which is like callinstudio.com/DSD live, if I remember correctly. All right, let's see what we got. All right, Tom, so it's been turned on. I know it'll take a few minutes for that to go through. John says, to such media, I agree. My dad went through it, and I didn't realize I walked into the same buzzsaw when I got married. Yep. I think I just expressed that with my story. And you know what? I wonder if I still have. Do I still have the button that shows the phone number? Oh, it's been a while. Oh, I know how I do it. I go into standby, guys. I'm a knucklehead. Hold on. That's the text. There we go. Let me hit this button. If you want to participate in this show, we'll probably only do one or two calls, probably just one. It's 424-373-5483, 1424-DSD live. And you can dial in, and if it works, I'll be able to bring you on to the show. Anyways, sorry for the new keyboard is what John also said, so I must have missed something there. That's funny. James says, don't hit the big red button. Yeah, the button that turns everything off. I think I did that once. So, anyways. So now I'm trying to figure out. I think I have this. Yeah, I think I have this right. So we'll have to just. All right. There we go. Back. Everything's back. Oh, cool. We got a call coming in. So we'll stand by. I'm looking at the other comments. I think I'm all up to date on the comments. Again, I want to say thank you to James, since he's up on the screen right now. Thank you so much for that super chat. Much appreciated. James is also one of our admins whenever I do live streams. So I thank you, sir, for jumping in, because I did not coordinate with anybody. I kind of figured it'd be a light day anyways. I figured people probably busy with Mother's Day and all that kind of stuff. All right, let me see. If I do this incorrectly, I apologize, but let me try to bring this person on. Hello, in theory, you are on the show.
Hey, Duane.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing. Honestly, I have to say, I can't believe that I remembered how to make this work. Hey, man, how's it going?
It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear from you, and congrats to your daughter for her graduation. That's awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I tell you, it's hard to believe that 4 years blew by. Actually, it's hard to believe that almost 12 years has blown by, to be honest. So what's going on with you? It's been a while.
Yeah, it seems like, just it's been a good year. Got a new job.
Congratulations.
Job. Yeah, at the same time, it's been 2 years, I think, since I last. It's not since the last time I called, but I remember when I went through my first legitimation case, I called your show, and and thankfully, again, I always thank you and your show for providing me emotional support through that first, entrance into family court. It was the toughest thing that I've ever done in my life, but anyways, now that we're 2 years later in, and I live in Georgia, so it's 2 years later, there could be a custody modification. And so the ex initiated it just because because our daughter is going to pre-K. And usually our daughter stays with her throughout the day during the work week. Mm-hmm. But since I have final decision-making authority over education, I get to select where the pre-K will be. But anyways, she kind of used her authority over extracurricular activities as like a leverage. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe. Like, I'm trying to summarize it, but basically, she decided to use her final decision making authority over over extracurricular activities in order to make it during times when I can't make it. So it's one of those things that's kind of difficult. But anyways, since I'm gonna place the pre-K next to me, she's taking me back to court, trying to reduce my parenting time, trying to take away my education authority that I just gained like 2 years ago. So it kind of sucks, but I think, I don't know, maybe your kid's like a little bit older, I'm assuming, because my daughter's like, she's going to turn 4 in June. But was your kid like older than that? Like when you started you're divorced and all that?
When I started it, the youngest was 6 and was in kindergarten, and the rest of them, so that it was like, let me see, it was like, when it originally started, it was like 12, 10, and 6, or about that. I might be a little bit off, but the oldest was in junior high. The youngest, or the middle daughter, was like 5th or 6th grade elementary school, and then the youngest was in kindergarten. And I mean, thank God, just because it already kind of set the stage that they were all in school. What's your custody arrangement? It's been a while since we talked about it. So what's the timeshare right now?
It's almost 50-50. I have a little less than 50%. So it's almost 50-50, but we live about an hour away from each other. So I try to make it in the middle, like the pre-K selection. I try to put it in the middle, but she told me no, I can't do that, even though I try to make it around where our exchange location is. Which is very unreasonable. She's only accepting. She only wants to basically choose a pre-K that's close to her.
Oh, of course.
So, anyways,
are you going pro se, or are you gonna hire an attorney?
I do have an attorney.
Okay.
So he worked with me on my last.
Here's the problem I see, and I would imagine your attorney's probably said this to you too. And I'll just say this to anyone listening: I'm not an attorney, nor am I a therapist. So, I mean, this is just from experience in hearing from and working with different people over the last 6-7 years of this channel. The benefit you have is consistency with the current schedule, right? So she's trying to make a change of modification based on some change. Now, the change being with her going to school, that's different than whenever, when she's with you, she's with you. When she's with her, and there's not this other thing that you're trying to coordinate with. So you have that in your favor, but I'm sure your attorney said, but there's still a risk, because now it's school, now things are changing. So, your ex is just using this as an opportunity to get another swing at bat. I would say your attorney's probably told you she probably has a 50-50 chance of being successful. Am I correct on that?
He hasn't told me that necessarily. What he did say was that we would basically, I think, really at the end of the day, I think for anybody that's in custody, these custody disputes and stuff, you basically have to make the other parent look as bad as possible.
You got
to make the other parent.
Hold on a second. Let me just throw this out here, because I'm actually working with another person who's kind of let me just say it this way. Yes, you can do that, but if you let the other person try to make you look bad and you don't engage in that type of behavior, it actually makes you look better and it makes them look worse. The scary part is you feel, and this is what I would imagine you feel like you're being punched, and people are like, what I'm just saying is telling you don't even put up your fist to defend yourself and just take the punches. And it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you feel like, okay, well, they're attacking me, so I need to equally attack them. And typically that doesn't necessarily work well. And I've seen multiple times, especially, and see, this is the sad part, is a lot of times moms will do this thinking that, well, I'm the mom and I'm going to win. And if the guy won't take the bait, a lot of times they light themselves on fire, and it either nothing changes, which sucks for the person being attacked because there's no consequences, or there is consequences and you end up getting full custody. And as you're pondering that for a minute, I just want to throw out there that Heather had asked, if you don't mind saying, what is your ex using as a change of circumstances? What is she trying to say is the reason why this is warranted now to try to change the custody arrangement you guys agreed on 2 years ago?
That's a great question. So we had in our original order that the child was going to stay with either one both of us or either one of us, as long as we work from home due to COVID.
Okay.
So, so now that she's becoming school age and now that COVID is becoming less of a problem now, it's, things are normalizing at this point. It's in pre-K, at least in Georgia, it's partially funded. For a certain period of time. Throughout of the day.
Okay.
So it's better than just paying a normal daycare. But anyways, we both agreed that we're going to do that. And then so their thing is basically like the change is like how you describe. My ex will have to drive a long distance because I was like, all right, well, if you don't want to do it in the middle and then you want to exclude me from extracurricular activities, she put soccer activities during business hours, during the week, as close as it can be to her house in order for me not to be able to attend.
Right.
So I'm like, if location doesn't matter to you and you're trying to use this as some sort of leverage, like you're leveraging extracurricular activities while we're discussing pre-K selection, then I'm like, all right, if you don't care about location being an issue, then I don't care about location being an issue. Then I'll just place her right next to me.
Yeah. What I would say is before you do that, make sure, hopefully you trust your attorney. And if I remember correctly, you've worked with them for, like you said, I think you feel, all attorneys are attorneys, right? I think you feel like you got an okay one.
Yeah.
I would just vet that. I get what you're saying, right? Because you're like, hey, look, you're not accommodating me, so I won't accommodate you. But see, then the problem is then it's going to look like to the court that you guys are both being stupid. You're both are playing games. Yeah. And then the risk is if the judge or the court, well, would be the judge, is turning around and trying to make the quote unquote best decision for the child. What are the pertinent facts on that? Right? Does it look that it would be better for you to have full custody, or would it be for your ex to have full, or mom to have full custody? It's a dangerous game. Now, if you remember, I'm sure you remember from my scenario, what my ex tried to do at the beginning to try to force that, 100% victory is I'm moving away. We're getting a divorce. We're working on custody. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to move 3 states away, or however many, whatever, 18-hour drive away, and I want custody. So that turned into a move away. And in my opinion, because she finally folded her cards, meaning that she finally settled, is it looked like and felt like, and what I was hearing rumor-wise, is that if she continued to push that button, I was going to get full custody, and she was going to be allowed to move away and have, the short amount of time that the non-parent gets, right? And
oh wow!
And when that finally happened, actually, it was kind of funny. Well, it's not. I can say funny now. It wasn't funny 12 years ago. It wasn't funny. But what ended up happening is I'm sitting there waiting, right, and I'm scared to death, thinking I'm going to lose, and I literally get a text, Duane, I have decided not to move to said state. And that was it, right? And then I heard through the grapevine that she was still going to move basically an hour away to a different town. And I'm like, and I just happened to mention that to the custody evaluator. I'm like, hey, because they said, hey, just to let you know, she's told us that she's not moving. And I'm like, oh, cool. But she's moving to this other town. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I said, I thought that if somebody moved, 30 minutes away or whatever it was at the time, I knew what the details were, that somebody moves this far away, it's still a move away. And they're like, oh, yeah. And I said, well, where she said she's moving, it's like 45 minutes away. Oh, right. So then it went from, you know, so then shortly after, I mean, as that bubbled up and it was like, finally, I think got to her. And here's the crazy part. Well, let me just finish this thought and I'll tell you the stupid part on my part. So once it bubbled up to her and she realized, oh crap, this is still turning into a move away. So she could move, 45 minutes away. And there was a strong possibility that I was still going to get full custody. Then she decided to stay, a mile from my house. Now here's the problem. And this is, I think everyone listening to this, you really need to think about this because this was the colossal mistake that I made. And primarily it was made out of fear. And that is this. I was like, oh my God, she's going to somehow figure out how to win. I got to try to stop it. Right. So well, there was two parts. One, it was, I wanted us both to be in the kids' lives, and I was trying to be reasonable. So when she would do stupid stuff, instead of using it against her, I would typically stop it so that she was able to regroup, reset, and basically mitigate the mistake that she made. And what I'm saying is and I'm just going to say it this way, if I would have shut the fuck up and just stayed quiet and let her implode on herself, there's a good possibility that I would have gotten full custody 12 years ago, and I would be in a much different situation than I am in today. Now, not to say that my situation's not bad. I've been able to figure it out and make the most of it, but it would have been a tremendous step easier, time-wise, money-wise, all those things, if I would have had more of an ability to provide stability for the kids. And as a result of that, if I had more time, obviously the child support still would have been, even if I would have gotten full custody, I still would have been paying her the way California works and the way the calculator works. And because I, made money. And at the time, California hadn't shifted to the go get an effing job state that it is now. Nowadays, they don't care. It's like, oh, really? You're the stay-at-home mom? Go get a job. And if you don't get a job, we're going to impute your wages. I have a friend of mine who's going through it right now. In the first, the first throes of this, and the court has already said, and Child Support Services has already said, she needs to get a job. And if she's not going to get a job, we're going to pretend she has at least a minimum wage job. And that would have been helpful for me, but whatever. But that's what I'm saying. So a lot of times we get in our own way. And I'm actually dealing with a coaching client I've been working with for the last few months. And that's probably the reoccurring theme with him. It's like, you have to stop getting in your own way. You keep you keep taking her mistakes and either having you get sucked into it to where you look as equally silly. Fortunately, he hasn't done that because so far every ruling has been against her and towards him. But he is so petrified that things are going to go south that he's constantly trying, exactly what I was just talking about. He's constantly trying to mitigate it. And I'm like, dude, you have to calm down and let her light herself on fire, and do not give her a fire extinguisher. Just let it happen. So that's kind of the same advice I'm trying to give you right now. You got to ultimately do the right decision, or the decision that works for you, but you also need to be very strategic about what you're doing and think about what the goal you're trying to accomplish. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's hard, man. It's not easy.
It's a hard situation. Yeah, you know this. You've gone through this longer than I have, and it's such an uncertainty. And thankfully, I'm a lot better at dealing with this now. Well, I'm in a better position than I was a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's not a fun situation, but just got to keep. Well, one thing that my attorney did tell me, because my ex keeps violating the court order, she's never on time.
Good.
To exchange, she's always 10 to 30 minutes late. It's
right.
Always. And so my attorney said, well, and she's been doing other things too. She told my child one time, I picked up my daughter, and then the same day she told me two things that her mom told her. She said that I was giving her poisonous things, which is so crazy. When she said that, she's like, Mama said that Dada gives poisonous stuff to me. And I told her, no, he doesn't. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. So I got her on video saying that. I was like, what did she say? So I recorded it, and then I told my attorney about it. after she like initiated this whole thing. And also she also said that Mama says don't trust Dada. I'm like, is she for real?
Dude,
like,
yeah. Unfortunately, that's the type of stuff that, and sadly, what you're experiencing is the fact that they don't stop. You know, I mean, you remember my old videos where I used to talk about them kind of being a Terminator, and it's like they get that mission in their head, and it's just they keep trying, right? Now, hopefully, your attorney is like, hey, we get these data points. We can go to court and we will bury her. And if that's what he's saying, maybe not quite that way. But
that's what he said.
Yeah, but
that's what he said.
Yeah, but see, and that's exactly what I was just talking about, right? It's like people have a tendency to overplay their hand, and it will blow up in their face. And as long as you are not doing the same things, and as long as you look stable, then it makes it so much easier to make a case or a scenario, or not a case. Well, I mean, it's to basically put it out there saying, look, in this particular situation, we have multiple data points, patterns of behavior. I know you heard me talk about that before. Patterns of behavior that demonstrate that mom is being vindictive, manipulative, might have some other issue, and this is not good for the child. And we have multiple data points. Now, she's going to try to say that it's not true, but multiple data points that dad is stable, dad is on time, dad doesn't do these things, and then it starts making it to whenever they are saying, okay, the best interest doctrine, that maybe they're, that you could be the one that seems like you're more beneficial for the kid.
Yeah, like it can provide a better home. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you do the wrong effing thing, if you start playing her game or you start doing stupid stuff that makes it look that you're just as stupid as she is, then they're looking, and I know you've heard me talk about that before, then you're looking at two people that look like knuckleheads. And they just have to pick, okay, well, who's the most stable knucklehead, or who do I think is the most? And in that scenario, it's like, okay, both of these people are dipshits, but a mom at least has that nurturing gene. Not all of them do, but some, people think stereotypically that, oh, okay, well, at the end of the day, the one that's going to be, the most loving is going to be mom. And dad's going to be the one that's going to be like, I mean, for instance, I'm just thinking in my head, like, kid falls down, has a boo-boo, mommy comes up and, is that okay, pumpkin? It's going to be okay, blow on it, that whole thing. And dad, the stereotypical is throw some dirt on it and get up, right? I mean, Yeah. So, then it just depends on what people think. But if you can continually demonstrate that you are stable, that you don't play stupid games. And I know back in the day when we used to talk, you sometimes made some mistakes in that regard. I made some mistakes. Yeah. But I mean, if you don't do that and you can demonstrate that you're the adult, the actual one who's trying to be the best parent you can be, and then whenever you're looking at it, when someone's looking at it and saying, okay, well, this person over here, I'm trying to get on screen, this person over here is unstable, but this person is okay. All right. And I get it. 20 years ago, it wouldn't matter if dad was stable and mom was unstable, unless it wasn't really bad, they're going to give it to, they're going to give the kids to mom. Cause that was just kind of the way things went. That's not happening a lot anymore. I mean, I just got an email from another guy who said, hey, I went through hell, supervised visitation, the whole 9 yards. Everything went to crap. I followed your channel. I followed your advice, and holy hell, I just got full custody. I got sole custody. And I'm
wow. Congrats to him. That's awesome.
Yeah. And he happened to be sending me that note when I was doing the graduation stuff. So I wasn't able to actually close the loop with him, but I'm going to try to do an interview with him. I mean, and that is not an anomaly. I mean, I get those type of comments from fathers on a reoccurring basis. I mean, it's not daily, but I mean, I get that more than I get. You know what? Honestly, I don't remember the last time I think the last time I've received anything where someone says they got hosed, and you probably, when I was doing more live streams, was the father in New Jersey where the mom had completely turned the kids to where they wouldn't even get out of the car on his visitations. They would stay in the car and yell and scream as she tried to get them out on his time for an overnight. And he finally got every other weekend or some whatever. But everybody else, I normally hear from people, it's like, wow, I got either more custody or at least they got 50-50. Right? I mean, you've heard the stories.
That's
You've
great.
been on, yeah. So I mean, it's not
That's great.
it's not impossible. I mean, I know you've watched, I mean, like, Dad Talk covers a lot of really horror stories, I mean, and there's some other, you go on the Facebook forums for fathers and you can see, if you want to see story after story of how things are going horrible, you can find that. But I would say for this community, I mean, I know I'm not huge, so I know I don't have like, all the viewers or whatever, but that's the reoccurring theme I get from people. Probably 90% that things actually work out. It takes a long time, don't get me wrong, but it actually works out in the end.
Well, I would say this: you have the best viewers in the best community in YouTube. So
thank you. I agree with that.
I don't.
Yeah, not to toot your own horn.
Well, yeah.
No, I know what you're saying, though, man.
No, but we're supportive. Like you support all of us. Like you have how many subscribers do you have at this point? You have like, is it 40 or is it more at this point?
Oh, 45 maybe. I don't think it's over 45,000. I guess I could look. Now you're making me want to look. Oh shit! Shoot, it's 46,900. So I'm pushing 47. Wow. Okay, I guess I wasn't paying attention. So yeah, it's cruising up there.
See?
And I will just say this,
that's awesome.
and I know I've said this to you. I think you've heard me say this. With me being close to the end of this, my whole plan is once I'm completely done, I got some stuff that's going on during the summer and everything. But once the kids basically are not here full time, I'm planning on diving back in and doing more of this, live streams. I've been working out an idea of how to do a more reoccurring show like I used to and stuff like that. So I want to dive back in to this community and try to build on it some more. I mean, unfortunately,
I know. Yeah, I know. I'm speaking of.
Yeah, I mean, the only unfortunate thing is every day there's new people coming in who are finding the channel and, are starting at day one, right? And if I can continue to help people to make different decisions and approach this in a different way that ultimately helps them help themselves and their kids, then I'm doing what I'm doing. I don't know what the right word is. God's work. I'm doing, what I'm, passionate about at least. So, all right.
Well, you're doing everyone like a service, and so we all thank you. And Duane, do you mind if I give some advice?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Yeah, go for it. If it's to me or to anyone else, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing is from my attorney. He told me even though, as I was telling you, that my ex is violating the court order on many fronts, like not showing up to exchanges on time, not including my information in extracurricular activities, like kind of excluding me from it fully. What he did tell me was this. He was like, don't call them out on violating the court order so much. Like, don't rub the court order in their face, because then it can start looking like you're harassing them.
Right.
Yeah. Even though they are violating the court order.
Yeah.
He was like, leave it up. He's like, you don't necessarily have to explicitly say it. You can maybe say it every so often, but don't overdo it. So I was kind of doing that.
Yeah, I think we all do it. And the other benefit to it is, I don't mean to interrupt you, but is that now you can do the data points to show the pattern of behavior that she is doing it. So when you ultimately in court, you empower your attorney or you empower your argument to say, Your Honor, this is what they're saying, but here is a laundry list of incidents, a pattern, a reoccurring pattern of behavior that demonstrates that this person just basically ignores this court order. And it's going to be so much more powerful in that, with that argument to it, as opposed to them not doing. I mean, and the reality is if you did tell her and she ultimately stopped, right? Well, now you lose all those data points. You know what I mean? But I get it. Hey, I used to do, like I said earlier, I did the same thing. I sent multiple emails and stuff to my ex outlining how she was violating the court order. Didn't change her behavior.
Yeah.
Made me stressed. I mean, it didn't help me at all.
No, you don't expect it to either. Yeah.
Okay. All honesty. Hold on a second, man. All honesty.
Yeah.
I actually thought that it might work and she would have an epiphany and stop being would start being a better person and co-parent. Initially that's what I thought. Then it was just to be an ass. And then I just stopped because I'm like, this is stressing me out. But no, unfortunately, I don't know, maybe you weren't, but unfortunately for me, I actually thought initially that it would work. I was incorrect in that assessment, by the way.
Well, no, I could see that. Most people would think that. The reason why I reversed it on her is not because I actually think that she's going to, or if I explicitly tell her that she's breaking the court order, I don't actually think that she's going to listen to me.
Yeah.
The point is really I'm doing it for court purposes.
Yeah.
So I'm not and I'll kind of go into my second piece of advice. I don't know. This has helped me, but since we're in the age of artificial intelligence and the whole chat GPT thing, I've actually used that to help me write messages to her.
Wow, that's a great idea.
That actually have been more objective. That's been more respectful, even though it's hard to be respectful to these people.
Yep.
Like today, I'll give today's Mother's Day. If you're a father, or when it's Father's Day, if you're the mother and you're dealing with this, you can send a message to them or an email. So that's what I did today. I was just like, good morning, whomever, wishing you and your mother a joyous Mother's Day. May your day be filled with love and happiness. I hope you have a wonderful day celebrating with your kid, whatever your kid's name is. Warmest regards, your name. So, it just it can actually help you look like the better co-parent, So It's just one of those things as an example. Today's Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't have a good relationship, even if they're an alienator, you can still use that as an example, as a good piece of evidence that you're trying, and you can put things aside and just try to have a good relationship. That's the best you can do. You can just kind of show that sort of stuff. But I would recommend others try to use ChatGPT to their advantage. It certainly helped me out articulating why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. And I just put in ChatGPT, improve this message. I put in quotes of what I wrote. It improves it. And then I kind of tinker around with it, improve it a little bit more, however I need to. And then I just post that in OFW. So if that helps anybody else out, just to be objective, to have sound reasoning in your communications and stuff. So that way later you can use that in your
OSW
court hearing.
Our Family Wizard, Talking Parents, all those things are supposed to be set up to where the courts and the professionals, quote unquote, can pull it out. And if the other data point or the other pattern or behavior, excuse me, is your communication shows a mature person who is trying their best to communicate and co-parent with the other person, and all the other communications show the exact opposite, that is another quality data point to drive that point home. Yeah, great advice.
Yeah,
man.
Exactly.
I hadn't thought about using Chat GPT. That's awesome. Too. Say that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a good little tool. No, I was just saying it's a good little tool, and especially if you're pro se and you're going up against another attorney, to show that you have some sort of bit of intelligence. Not to say that you have to use ChatGPT to help you with your communications, but if you can use that to your advantage, they will respect you more and not think of taking advantage of you as much. They probably still will, just because you're pro se, but
yeah, but the reality is you're not helping them take advantage of you. You send snarky messages, and it's hard not to, right? You have a great point, because I remember there would be a few times I would write something, go back, look at it, and I'm like, oh man, if I got that from her, it looks snarky, and then you edit it again and you edit it again, and it's and that's why I know my hybrid no contact is a different technique than Bill Eddy's BIF, brief, informative, factual, and fair. I don't know what it stands for, but bottom line, it's along the same lines to where you really tailor your communication in a way to where it just gets to the point and it doesn't devolve into that, because one, it could trigger the other person and turn into a flame war. That doesn't help you. And then if just on its merit, if somebody externally looks at it and goes, wow, what an ass, it doesn't help you. So that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about chat. Hey, might as well use Chat GPT to the fullest before Skynet becomes aware, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Why not? Just why not? So
exactly.
Anyways, that was my 2 things that I've heard lately. So if it helps
Awesome.
on anybody else,
right.
I hope that does help. But anyways, I'll let you go. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, man. Thanks for calling. Appreciate
when
it.
Your day, I was gonna say when your last day comes, I guess when your youngest child turns 18, you should definitely do like a party, like a live stream party. I'm getting out of family court.
I might do that, or I might just wait and do it in September, because that's whenever it will actually end. Because technically, it's whatever. If it, like for instance, when my kids would graduate in 1 June, it didn't end. It was still on the books until the next month. So technically, September is my freedom month.
September this year.
Exactly.
We got to make it happen. That'd be awesome. We got to celebrate you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. Hey, thanks for calling. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Yep.
Well, that is outstanding. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I know that was long, but I appreciate it. All right, let me check. Let me figure out how to turn off the live caller icon for the people watching the video. And I'll go through the last little bit of comments, and then we'll wrap this up and give you guys your day back. And hopefully you are having an outstanding day. So I'll go backwards. And it says, Carry On says, yeah, Chat GPT is damn useful to make things more concise and less emotional. That is such cool advice. I don't know why I never thought about that. That's really awesome. Let's see. Hold on a second. I'm trying to read this one. Shasha came in, hasn't been in a while, and says, my child revealed to me her dad was abusing her stepmom and siblings when she had to visit him physically. She held it in for 7 years because he said nobody would believe her and he'd do bad things if he ever told anybody. Oh, man, Shasha, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully you can do something with that information to help change your scenario. The only thing I would say is you got to be really careful, because you just have to make sure that your child is going to consistently say that and people believe it, so that it doesn't flip back on you that you are trying to get them to say that, if that makes any sense. So, sorry, I'm really sorry to hear that. Let's see here. Tim says, same stuff, different case. I remember my mom telling me my dad was a bum because he had a beard. Uh-oh, I have a beard. My dad told me to tell mom that Jesus had a beard. That was in 1973, and I remember it now. It's so crazy what people say. It's just tough. Anyways, James says it's important to point out that it's best not to call them out on things they do. Once they know it gets to you, they'll do it often, rinse and repeat, or limit it because they know you'll be used as a weapon. That's the other follow-on thing. Yeah, I mean, be strategic, guys. I mean, you have to look at this scenario, battles and wars. You've heard me talk about that in the past. You have to say, okay, what helps move the needle ultimately in the direction I want it to go? Sometimes pointing things out to, maybe show a data point like iTumblr's caller was talking about is beneficial, but you can't keep doing it all the time. And at the same time, if you have somebody who's more covert on it, you need those overt actions to use. Now, unfortunately, I ran out of money, so my ability to be able to go back and try to fight some of this stuff and the what do you call it, the contempt of court issues and stuff like that, and I just basically pivoted my focus on the kids, trying to maintain the most stable environment I could for them and mitigate this and try to make sure I have the strongest relationship with them. And to be perfectly honest, that is the single best inoculation for parental alienation you can do. And it's easy and it's hard. The hard part about it is you feel like you need to engage. You feel like you have to counterpoint everything, and you feel like you need to draw a picture for your kids so they know what everything's going on. I did that at one point early on. All that did was stress the kids out, strain my relationship with them, basically dig me a deeper hole that I ultimately, when I finally realized that wasn't working and I needed to try something different, now I had to undo all that damage that I had done or I had contributed to, that where had I not done that in the beginning, I would have still been up here, and then I would have been moving up as as things were getting better. But what I did is I'm like, oh, this, I was scared to death. I mean, the kids were saying things that I was scared was going to empower their mom, to make the argument to be able to leave the state and take everything. And I was so petrified of that. And I thought that if the kids understood that, they would stop. So every time I tried to educate them, for lack of a better word, all that ended up doing was giving my ex an extra piece of ammunition to use against me. I actually was, at one point, they said, if you say anything else to the kids about what's going on, we're going to hold you in contempt and send you to jail. Knock it off. And I'm like, oh, and I stopped. I remember at one point when I was going through the custody evaluation, the evaluator's like, well, you're still talking to the kids. I'm like, I am? Give me examples. I'm like, when they said not to do that, I stopped. So if I'm still doing something, please give me a data point, give me an example of what you're talking about, because I don't think I'm doing that. And if I am, I need to know so I know exactly what you're saying I'm doing that's wrong. And the lady was going through all the paperwork, and she's like, well, I can't find one, but you need to stop doing that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, fine. You can't find it, so whatever. So anyways. So back to Shasha. It says, I never said anything negative about her dad until she revealed the abuse. This is an awful situation. Therapy or school, if your daughter's in school, if they have a school counselor, you might want to try to utilize them and have your child work with them. And if she says something that is a mandatory reportable, then it's not on you, it's on the kids. Does that make sense? I mean, the only thing I will, you guys, everyone needs to understand though, that that's not a slam dunk. I have this one client that I'm thinking about in my head that has gone through this, where his ex has had the kids, now not your situation because you said you haven't said anything about them, but has basically prompted the kids to say things, to get mandatory reports to do things, and it's been completely unfounded and didn't affect custody. I mean, obviously the person who's being blamed for doing horrific things, I mean, that's affected them, but you have to be very, I'm not saying don't, I'm not saying when you hear these things, don't do what you need to do. I guess what I'm saying is don't think in the back of your mind, I got the silver bullet and it's going to just, nuke them from space, so to speak. You still need to be very cautious and deliberate in everything you're doing, if that makes sense. Hopefully that does. So, okay. Says, yes, she is seeing someone at school. He won't help. Well, here's the thing. If those communications, and if it doesn't bubble up to the level of mandatory report, I mean, one, if your child is saying something to a school official and they're not mandatory report, that is a huge liability for the school and for that person. So either they are nefarious and they think, well, one, this is actually a decent discussion. It's not going to be a pleasant discussion, but so for one, your child is not saying it in the context to where it's reached that threshold that it's mandatory reportable, or they don't necessarily believe your kid for some reason. But even still, the whole mandatory report thing is very, very specific. So my concern on that is maybe your daughter is sharing more with you, or maybe what she's sharing, and I had a problem with this myself, taking it the most bad way possible. That is, maybe it's at I'm on the screen. I'm like, maybe at the bottom of the bar, it's like really low, and it's like, that could be concerning, but it also might not be. But for us, it's like, holy hell, alarm bells. Why would someone do that? I mean, I don't know. I've gone through that before where I would see the ex do stuff and I'm like, what the hell are you, why? Why would you do that to your child? Whereas other people are like, oh, well, excuse. So I the problem though, Shah, is, you say you're a mandatory reporter too. I already called. The problem is if you are calling as the parent, that typically when parents call, it doesn't really go super well. Now, if you're saying that you're a mandatory report and you've had other people say stuff to you and you've had to call because you understand what the threshold is, fine. I would just say be very. I'm hoping you're not saying that you called about your situation. Let me ask this, but if you did, has it actually accomplished anything? That would be my question to you. And if it did, great, right? I mean, if you were able to call and they've got the right people involved and they're like, holy crap, this is serious and we're doing something about it, that's outstanding. If not, that's not so great. Yeah, and mandatory reporters must report, leave it to CPS to act. Yeah, and I'll take that in the context of, your kid says something to you, you take them to a therapist or you take them to the school therapist and they say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. And that person says, holy crap, calls the phone and starts to report, do that. Because see, then it's not you. You're not the one trying to create a problem, or not create a problem, but, exploit a problem. I'm trying to think of the right word to say it. You want the scenario to play out to where it's like, you're not the one trying to weaponize the scenario. And I feel it's rough to say this because these scenarios are so damn hard for us whenever it's our children. We know they're in a bad way. We feel, I mean, I've felt this way multiple times where you feel powerless to step in and save them. You're basically not given the ability to do it. And I'm sure we've all seen the stories where something happens and someone says, damn it, this is my child, I have to act. And they take their kid and they run away to take them out of the scenario, ultimately for it to completely blow up in their face. Because we think, well, who would think wrongly of somebody for acting to save their kid? And then what ended up happening in the scenario I'm thinking about, and this was a dad that did this, you lose everything, you get zero custody, and then things either go real bad and you end up on an episode of Dad Talk Today or one of their documentaries, or you're just washed out of the kids' lives. So, yeah, so just be very careful of that, folks. All right. On that, I think I am going to start wrapping things up because we've been on for a little over an hour and a half. And if I can remember how to do this, I want to say thank you to all the folks who are channel members. Their names, if you're watching the video, are scrolling across the screen right now. I know I haven't been able to do as much, but like I mentioned earlier, I will be rolling things in. And these people help keep the show going and keep things alive. And I very much appreciate it. On that, take care, and I will catch you on the next one.